Why, hello everyone. Good morning, or at least it's morning for me. Um, we are we are back to. Hello, Azarias. I hope you're doing well. Nice emote. Yeah. After I think it's been a week, or at least close to a week since I last streamed Warriors All Stars. Um, Last week I was a bit too busy to stream at the regular time, and I also just didn't really feel like it. But we're still very far away from the full end to this game, and I want to make progress on it. Since Utawara Ramono Zan got delayed, I still would like to finish it, preferably before that game releases. Whether that will actually happen or not, even with the delay, no clue. That gives me nearly 2 months, but I'm also only about 1/3 of the way toward full 100% completion. And that 1/3 has taken like about a month of regard grinding nonstop. So I have no clue if I'll actually reach that goal. Either way, though, I still want to at least make as much progress as possible before that. So gonna go ahead and start the game. Yeah, I'm gonna start out with Kasumi. Ignore that Sophie is the one that's leader. Um, where is she? Okay. I'm going to start with Kasumi because I did a bit of grinding off stream, and now most characters have at least rank 4 with her. There are still a couple that are just rank 1, but not very many. Most are rank 4 or at least rank 3. So we are pretty close towards getting her to max. I think we can do it before the end of the stream. And I really hope so, because I do not love Kasumi. She is not my favorite character to play. And I would love to move on to a different one. And cough really quickly before we're starting this. I love having Zhou Kang equipped along with Honoka, because if you end up getting lucky and getting the rock paper scissors that recharges all of your hero skills like 3 or 4 times in a row with Honoka, you can use Zhou Kang's that many times, and it doesn't just reset the time on the skill, it stacks the effects, so you can get ridiculously fast running and attack speed, way faster than the game intends you to ever get, and so it looks really funny with certain attack animations. Almost forgot to frequently use my special attack as well. It's very obvious that despite the small bit of off-stream grinding I did a couple of days ago, going nearly a week without playing very much, I am a little bit rusty. Luckily, this game does not take long to get back into the swing of things, but my rotations will suffer a slight amount until I get fully back into that swing. Luckily, despite despite being a bit rusty, it's not as noticeable as it would otherwise be because I'm already playing a character that I'm not that good at. I already barely know a decent rotation for Kasumi anyways, so being a bit rusty with her in particular isn't really as different from my normal rotations as it would seem. Also, I just realized that the Nightbot chat still appear on the on stream screen chat window. I know I removed stream elements from it, so thought I removed Nightbot, but I guess not. I guess I'll have to fix that next stream. I don't like those being on the in-stream itself chat window because they take up so much fucking space. Like that one chat message. Luckily, chat's not really active at all, but right now anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but it still takes up half of the entire window per single message from them. I guess I gotta fix that next stream. Should probably also chat how close I am to this one. Okay, 40 away, not too bad. Still have 1/5 of the way to go. As soon as we get this done, our our regard grinding progress will increase, not hugely, but a decent amount, just because of the fact that we, in a next New Game Plus run, all of these like kind of character quests will reset, and completing these increase regard with the individual character associated with them. And I'm trying to go for all of them in one run, and that's the only one I have left, Sophie's. And unfortunately, they only reset once you do a New Game Plus restart. They don't reset after finishing the third one for each line. So I've been going quite a while without max efficiency grinding for the sake of getting all of those done in one run. Because that single mission, along with another one that we finished, I think it was either last stream or the one before. Those two have taken us quite a while, but as soon as we finish those, we can increase our efficiency by quite a bit. I feel like this map right here is one of the most disappointing maps in the entire game, which is a shame because it could be one of the best. I love the casino stage. It looks so nice and very different from anything else in the entire game's like roster of stages. The problem though is that this entire stage, despite it being this is Rio's stage, like it's the stage associated with her. However, it's not fully a casino. The only part that's even like a casino at all is these 4 rooms in this top left segment of the map. And these top 2, especially the top one in the very top left, this room is almost never like actually necessary to go into. Almost never required to go into for any missions. Obviously, you can still go into it and get an extra base for doing so, but it's never required. Usually when you do have to go in here for one of these missions, usually this room and the one directly below it. And the entire rest of the map, this is like 1/6 of the entire space the map takes up. This is the only part that's a casino. The rest is just a typical forest, and that's really exemplary of most of this game's map design problems. They have cool ideas, because the whole idea behind the maps like this is that pieces of these characters' worlds are kind of infiltrating and integrating with the regular environment of this world. So they're not just directly taken from their original games, they're kind of integrated in with this original universe. And that's an interesting idea, but the way they usually actually convey that in most stages is 80% of the stage will just be like a normal forest or a normal grassland or a normal desert, and then 20% of it will be reminiscent of one of the character's original games. It's such a small portion that it's really disappointing. It could have been so much better. Like I do think the idea is very neat, you know, not just straight up taking stages from each of their games and instead kind of making it a little bit more original, exclusive to this game. But the way it's executed is just, half of these stages don't feel like crossover stages. They feel like very basic land types with a very minor element of crossover. Such a minor element that it's barely noticeable. Because, like I said, in this particular stage, I think this stage is the worst example of it. Most stages are pretty bad, but not quite this bad. But in this stage, only the very top left corner is even a crossover like reference. The rest is just a normal forest, and the worst part is that most missions don't even require you to go into that top left section. A majority of missions either only require you to go in the other like 4/5 or require you to go into the casino a tiny bit of the stage, but not for most of it. It's such an underused aspect of this entire stage because it takes up so little space, and instead of putting it at like the center or something, I feel like if they did the same thing but put it in the center of the stage instead, it would have been much better, because then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're spending a lot of time outside of the casino, but you're always kind of surrounding it. It would probably always be in your view no matter where you are in the stage. But no, instead of it being in the center, it's in the furthest point away from everything else in the map, in a spot where you 90% of the time will not see it or even notice it. And the 10% of the time that you are in it, you're barely in it at all. Like, you spend so little time in that segment of the map. It feels like a complete waste. Kind of just another example of how this game is almost interesting. It's got good ideas, but it just executes on all of them so poorly that it just kind of turns into a massive disappointment. This is not a great game, unfortunately, but it really has most of the pieces there to be at least a good game. But just none of them come together well. Speaking of very underused mechanics, the card system, and also I really wish there was a way to skip through these instead of just spamming the A button. But the card system, it's not completely useless. You know, some of the extra effects are taking a break from my musou to watch some musou. Howdy. Hello, Howie. How are you doing? What musou were you playing? Hope it was a good one and not a bad one, like this one. This one's not terrible, it's just not great. Got some massive problems. Very missed potential in a lot of areas. Yeah, but what was your musou? Was it a fun one? King is very close to the max, but not quite. Yeah, the 4th rank, getting from rank 4 to rank 5 is always the slowest one. It's not too slow, it only takes a couple of battles, but it is not going to be an instant process of going from rank 4 to rank 5 after just 1 or 2 battles. It does take a bit longer than getting from rank 1 to 2, or 2 to 3, 3 to 4, etc. Playing through Senran and Kagura Burst and its remake. Oh, are you playing? Okay, so you said you're playing through both of them? I did the same earlier this year. Burst on the 3DS, I did not 100% that one, because I don't consider that one a musou. I just consider it a 2D, 2.5D beat 'em up. But I did finish it, like the main game, and it's alright. It's very button mashing to a point where it kind of gets a bit tedious, but I don't think it's terrible. First Renewal though is not bad, but it's very obviously a very faithful remake of a 3DS game, and I think that's its biggest problem. First Renewal is a fairly good game. It's just held back by the fact that it is remaking a 3DS game with mostly the same stages. But the combat in it is pretty fun. Also a lot of really good characters. I think her name is Ryoki. Ryoki is I don't know if she's my #1 favorite, but I really like her because of her voice lines. She has some really good lines, like specifically when she's in her transformed state. She calls people fuck saws, and I don't think I'd ever heard that insult before playing that game, but now it's like one of my favorites to just say as like a joking insult. First is like fine, it runs like ass on original hardware, so emulating it is yeah, no, I remember that, yeah. It does not run amazingly well, even on original hardware. It's not great, but I did emulate it, but I have seen some actual hardware gameplay of it, and it doesn't seem to run well on that either. On emulation though, it's got some problems. Nothing game breaking, but it definitely doesn't run especially well. Yeah, the remake is good. It's not amazing. I would not recommend fully 100%ing it. I forgot what they're called, but there's a system in that game that is almost the same thing as if I remember correctly, there's something that is almost the same as the regard ranks in this game, and those take fucking forever to max out, from what I remember. I can't say I would recommend doing full 100%, but just playing it normally is a pretty fun time. When I started emulating it, was running poorly enough that I started playing on original hardware just to check if it was the game or the emulator law. And I assume it was the game itself mostly. I'm sure it probably ran a little bit better on actual hardware compared to emulation, but I have read that it does not run the best on actual hardware either. I know it was like a relatively early 3DS title, not quite a launch title, but like I think the original like Japanese version, not Burst, but because Burst is technically already a like upgraded version of another version of the game that was only in Japan, but to my knowledge, I think the original version was released in like late 2011, early 2012. Less stuttering and no jittery screen freakouts, but it runs about the same. Yeah, sounds about right. I do remember when emulating it, I mean playing it on my totally real digital 3DS I bought from Nintendo for $1 billion. I do remember that one having some pretty like major occasional like green like freakouts of like this screen kind of like not flashing exactly, but showing a black screen for like one frame every once in a while. Nothing terrible, but nothing great either. But yeah, I'd imagine in terms of like game speed, like slowdowns and stuff, and poor frame rate issues, probably not too different on actual hardware. Especially in areas with like a lot of enemies. Despite one of the launch titles on the 3DS being a Samurai Warriors game, the 3DS, even later in its lifespan, is not really the console made for musous or any 3D game with large numbers of enemies, including 2D beat-em-ups. But you know what, it's still pretty impressive when they do occasionally get it anyways. Yeah, despite being a partially 3D console, I mean 3D is literally in its name, but the 3DS does not run a lot of 3D games with a large number of enemies on screen, especially the most well. Musous, 2D beat 'em ups, some strategy games even. You know, usually turn-based strategy games, it doesn't matter too much if there's like slowdown and stuff. But something I distinctly remember is all of the Fire Emblem games on 3DS. Whenever going into like the 3D view of a fight, it would always slow down quite a bit, and that was on actual hardware, so that I can confirm isn't just an emulation thing. So it's quite common with a lot of 3D games on that console. It's not the most amazing at running the types of games that it is named after. But that's not to say that all games run horribly on it that are 3D. I'm sure first-party Nintendo games like 3D Land and Ocarina of Time 3D probably run pretty well, but at least for games like third-party musous and things like that, and even some first-party games, so like I mentioned Fire Emblem before, kind of a bit hit or miss on how well they want to run. Also, TBH, I have zero intention on 100%ing Burst because of the stuttering gives me a headache. But I probably will suffer through completing Burst Renewal because it will bother me if I have all of the achievements. Okay, so if you just want achievements, you don't have to 100% the game. Assuming if you're playing on Steam, but the achievements are probably the same on PlayStation. Full, like, true 100% completion is not needed for the achievements. The achievements are actually really easy to get. I think I got all of the achievements like 20 hours into that game, despite the fact that my total playtime was like, I want to say like 60 or 70 hours. Significantly more than the achievement time. So, if you just want the achievement completion, then like, that's not that bad. It's only when you're going for like full everything completion, like even the extra stuff that most people wouldn't consider necessary. Like the regard grinding in this game, because there's no achievement for maxing out regard in this game, but there is a gallery, and that gallery does not have achievements associated with it, but it does still have like a checklist. And that checklist requires maxing regard with everyone, so that's the reason I'm doing this. And First Renewal was kind of a somewhat similar situation, where not everything is covered by the achievements, but I still like going above and beyond for everything. Because, you know, yeah, I've gotten all of the achievements, but I feel like if I don't go for everything in modern musous that have achievements, then it feels weird, not 100% like truly completing those, when for older games that don't have achievements, no matter what, I will be 100%ing those completely, since, like, you know, I can't just stop at a certain point once I have achievements, because there aren't achievements. Unless you count, like, retro achievements, but I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about official means. Like, for example, if this game was not a modern game and this had, like, didn't have achievements, if this game did not have achievements, upon first looking at the game, my immediate thought would be, okay, to 100% this, I have to get Regard. So there being achievements and not being an achievement for maxing out Regard doesn't change the fact that I still want to do that extra little bit, even if it's not technically necessary when going by exclusively achievements. The occasional crashing from the bathhouse has really gotten me into the habit of saving even more frequently than I normally do. I already save pretty often, just kind of naturally in most games I play. A bit of a habit I've had for a long time, but in this game especially, I feel like I save after every tiny thing, just in case. Since this game is so unstable on the PC port, I would assume most likely the console versions are a lot more stable and less prone to crashing. That usually is the case for musous from this era. Usually the PC ports are pretty bad compared to the console versions, but I haven't tested it myself to confirm. I know this game was on PS4, and I think it was only on PS4. I don't think it got a Vita release. I know a lot of musous from this period, especially crossover games, got both PS4 and also either PS3 or PS Vita releases, sometimes both. But I don't think this is one of them. I think this one only had a PC and PS4 release. I would assume said PS4 release is a lot more stable than the PC version. Luckily, we're kind of past the era of bad musou PC ports now. From what I've heard, Dynasty Warriors Origins runs really well on PC. Luckily, that's not quite as much of an issue as it was even 5 years ago. Yeah, yet another stage where the crossover aspects aren't obvious at all. In fact, they're so not obvious in this stage that I'm not actually entirely sure what this stage is a crossover with. My assumption is that it's the same series that Darius and Hajime Arima are from, because this is the stage that Darius is encountered on, and he also mentions like, oh, this forest is my home, so I assume the forest is from that game. However, it's really not obvious because this area kind of just looks exactly like every other forest area in this game. There's nothing unique setting it apart, so this is one of the stages that is not only not very obvious about its crossover aspects, but is so not obvious that I don't even have any clue what the crossover parts are. To me, this just looks like every other stage in this game. Just a forest with wooden walls. Another very, very odd thing about this game that causes some significant problems a lot of the time. When you use your special attack, in most musos, when you use like your musou attack, special attack, whatever it's called, depending on the game, it will freeze time around you and also freeze the enemies in front of you. And the reason it does this is to pretty much lock the enemies in front of you in place so they can't just walk out of your attack during its animation. It's a very common thing. It's, you know, a very good little quality of life thing. Without it, most musos would be significantly more annoying, and musou attacks would be significantly less useful if enemies could just walk out of them, especially considering that, depending on the character, a lot of them have very long attack animations. Also, sorry if that got through the mic. I was getting a spam call, so that was my ringtone. If the mic picked that up for a moment, I should probably mute that. But that is not the case in this game. In this game, when you use your special attack, it like slows down time for the enemies directly in front of you. Sometimes it doesn't, and I don't know why. I think it's just a bug. This game is very glitchy, so it would not surprise me if it was. But sometimes it just doesn't slow down time for them in front of you. But even when it does, it doesn't fully freeze time. It just kind of very significantly slows it down, which means that it's very possible for an enemy to still be in range and then walk out of it if your character has an especially long animation time. And also, if they're not directly in front of it, even if it is a special attack that hits from all sides, if they're not directly in front of you, they don't get slowed down. And so if a character is to your sides or behind you, even if your special attack will still hit them, it does not slow them down. Which, to be fair, that specific issue is kind of a thing in other musos, but it's way less of a problem than in this game, because the cone of like area of effect of the slowdown is not that big. It's pretty small. So for a lot of characters, their musou attack or special attack is not entirely useless, but not very useful either, because it's so inconsistent about actually hitting opponents around you. Oh, another thing to complain about, literally hit me the second I spawned in, the arrow rain. So on certain maps, if you look at the map here, you will see that at Fortress number 2, in the very middle of the map, it has a picture of a crossbow, and that crossbow means that from that keep, it will constantly spawn arrows sent at enemy keeps. Most maps have at least one of these, if not several. This one has 3, and it makes it to where it is really fucking obnoxious to ever pass through your own bases. Your own bases are genuinely more annoying to go through than enemy bases because of the arrow rain, because this will happen. You'll get locked underneath the arrows because the arrows will rain down for about like 5 or 6 seconds, and then they will change their exact position. They'll still happen within the same keep, but the exact spot the arrows will spawn will change. But if you get under them at all, you're basically just stun locked for like 5 or 6 seconds. And they can potentially spawn directly on top of you as you're walking through. And by can directly spawn on you, I mean, will happen frequently enough that it's really fucking annoying. It's not an infrequent occurrence at all. It's very common. Like, I would not be surprised if while I'm walking over to this enemy, a bow and arrow, a rain of arrows suddenly spawned under me. Would not be surprising at all. Oh, well, it's right there. It's not under me, but it was where I was about to walk to, so... And if you get caught under them, it is incredibly annoying. It's especially bad when you're not even fighting an enemy. It's worse when you're just walking through the camp, because you expect to just casually walk through your own base where you should be safe and should be the fastest means of transportation. But no, instead, it's very likely you'll get arrows rained down on you, and so the safer and faster method of movement in most cases is not to go through your own base, it's to go through enemy bases, which is exactly the opposite of what should be the point. Your own bases should not be the least safe areas on the map. But because of the fact that those arrows can rain down, and they rain down so frequently, it's more of a hassle to walk through your own already captured bases. It's also a hassle to capture bases, because after I capture the space, there is a small chance that the arrows will spawn on this base and start raining down on me the second see. It did have a slight delay. It did not happen immediately, but it is very frequently that those arrows will just immediately come down on you the frame that you capture the base. And so what's best to do in a lot of cases is kill the base captain at the very edge of the base. That way you can at the very least have less of a chance of being fully trapped under it, and may be able to escape it even if you are caught under it for a couple seconds. Yeah, this game's got a lot of very obnoxious mechanics to it. Something I was thinking about the other day is maybe I was a bit harsh on Samurai Warriors 1. You know, that was of course the last musou I completed. Not on stream. That was of course before I started streaming. That was a couple months ago that I finished it. But maybe I was a bit harsh on it. I was not a huge fan of that game. I think it had a lot of issues, especially when going for full completion. A lot of those issues became a pretty big problem, primarily with the mission system. The missions in that game kind of suck. I still think that game is far from perfect. I don't think it's an amazing game, and by the standards of PS2 era Toei Musous, it is and will likely remain my least favorite. I think I may have been a bit harsh on it. The exhaustion of going through the same stages over and over back then for a couple of missions with different characters got a bit tedious, and I also was not in the best mood to play that game when I started it, because I was largely playing that game out of obligation, I suppose, because the main reason I decided to do Samurai Warriors when I did was because I told myself that I didn't want to play any of the crossover musous without at least playing all or most of the crossover games that are featured in them. Primarily, the one I was thinking about was Warriors Orochi. Because Warriors Orochi is a crossover game between Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors, and I've heard great things about those games. I don't think it'll be the next musou I play, but Warriors Orochi 1 will likely be a musou that I do probably sometime early next year. And I wanted to play Samurai Warriors 1 before playing that one. And so I was originally playing it out of a sense of obligation because I really wanted to get to that one. So I wasn't really playing Samurai Warriors 1 for the game itself, but rather for future game. And that obviously wasn't really the best mindset to go into it with. So I think I got exhausted a bit faster than I would normally because of that. Again, I still don't think it's a great game. It's got some major issues, but a couple months removed from it, while I don't love Samurai Warriors 1, it definitely had some positives to it. I still think it probably has the single best story mode out of the musous I've played. That story mode kind of sucks when you're playing it 100%, doing every character and doing every mission. But if you're just playing casually, I think Samurai Warriors 1 is actually probably one of the best in the genre for a casual, single, or at least handful of run-throughs. They're not super long, but they're also like, the storytelling is decently told. There's multiple routes, only 2 routes per character, but you know, 2 routes is more than 0, or more than 1, I suppose. And despite a lot of characters having very similar story mode routes, a lot of characters, especially ones within the Nobunaga clan, will go through almost the same set of stages. But again, if you're only doing a couple of characters and you don't really care for that too much, that story mode is pretty fun. And the missions, while I hate them for completion, I think a lot of them are very glitchy. Even when they're not glitchy, they're very mediocre when you're doing all of them over and over in a row. However, if you are just playing them normally and you're not putting hundreds of hours into it, I can absolutely see those missions and the game directly telling you it, especially if you're not super familiar with strategy-oriented musous. I could see those being decently enjoyable to go through. I personally don't love them. I prefer the more freeform strategy of less directed games. For example, Dynasty Warriors 2, the objective in a lot of musous are kind of just kill the commander. How exactly you get there is up to you, but if you do the wrong things, your allies will likely drop in morale quite a bit and possibly die. So there is still a strategy, you can't just do anything, but that strategy is mostly up to you. In Samurai Warriors, that's not the case at all. It tells you, okay, this is your next mission, go do this. It's significantly more linear, and I don't personally love that. I think that's my biggest problem, but I can absolutely see some people enjoying that, especially people who are less familiar with like real-time strategy games or musos in general. And so and plus, Samurai Warriors, for being the first in its sub-series, did do a lot right. It had some very nice QOL stuff, quality of life stuff. I have not played Dynasty Warriors 4, and I know it pretty much a lot of the things that it introduced weren't truly introduced in Samurai Warriors. It was introduced in Dynasty Warriors 4, but even so, there is a decent amount of quality of life stuff, whether fully original to Samurai Warriors or from DW4 initially. Either way, they still feel very nice. There is also some very nice extra stuff. The extra costumes. So I know that Dynasty Warriors 4 also has multiple costumes, but to my knowledge, they are mostly color swaps. Samurai Warriors 1 has some really nice alternate costumes. Every character only gets one, but that one alternate costume is fantastic for everyone. They are a complete model swap, completely different outfit, and some of them are really funny. I think my favorite is probably Orochi's outfit. She gets a, like, she gets basically a fursuit of, I guess it's a tanuki, I suppose. It's really cute. And every character's alternate costume is great. And Samurai Warriors is the first game in the genre that really did that, that really gave, like, not just alternate costumes, but alternate costumes that really went out of their way to be very fun, and not just a direct color swap. Yeah, Samurai Warriors, it's not a great game. I still think it has some very big issues that I hope will be rectified with Samurai Warriors 2. At least by my personal tastes, I don't love it, but it's not a terrible game. I think I was quite a bit too harsh on it. I think in the time since, it is no longer my least favorite muso. It is on the lower end, but not quite at the very bottom anymore. My opinion has lined up on it a bit in the past few months. That said, I do plan to, something I did not do, something I did 100% everything in Samurai Warriors 1 itself, but what I did not do is I was originally planning to go for every retro achievement, just cause, you know, might as well. I like achievements, but I did not end up doing that. I went for most of them, but I did not go for any of the Chaos difficulty achievements. And the reason why I didn't was because they required replaying every character's story mode, both routes on Chaos mode, and that would have added like another 30 or 40 hours to the game. And when I was already at the very end, I was just like, I don't feel like doing this. But someday I probably will go back and actually do that, finish up the last few retro achievements. And once I do, I think my opinion of the game will likely be more solid after I do a revisit for that. No, that'll probably be another year or so from now before I end up doing that, so it'll be quite a bit of time for my initial playthrough. Perfect for seeing where my opinion lies a year afterwards instead of just 2 or 3 months. See, we've been going for close to an hour, not quite exactly, but close to one, and we still have quite a few left to go for Confidant. So our progress is decently slow, but it's also not too unexpected considering the fact that we are ranking them up from starting from rank 4, and rank 4 is of course the slowest rank by far compared to 1 through 4. Rank 5 is very slow to reach, so it's not too surprising. Give me that skill orb. I really hope that the ally up here is not the weakest one. So the order in which your allies will die is kind of determined by how weak each of them are. You won't know until you've actually went up to them, unless I guess you can check this menu to see, but I generally don't do that. And generally the best way to tell is what their bravery rank is, because ironically, you would think, oh, the ones with a the enemies, well, I meant to say the enemies with the lower regard rank are likely the ones that you want to go for last, because they're the weakest, and so they take the longest to kill your ally. But no, funnily enough, you do actually want to go after the ones with the lowest bravery rank first, not only because they're easier to fight, of course, but because despite what you would probably think, the ones with the lower bravery rank, in my experience, from what I've noticed, and I don't know if this isn't like a set in stone thing that I know is the case, but it is what I have personally noticed, the enemies with the lower bravery rank will end up killing your ally faster than the other two. The two with the higher bravery rank will take longer to kill your ally than the one with the lower, at least from what I have noticed, which is very odd, very counter what you would probably expect. but from what I've noticed, that seems to be the case. Which I guess probably the reason for it is because the weaker allies are paired up with the weaker enemies. So, you know, the enemy is weaker, but so is your ally. I suppose that's why, but you would think that it would just kind of balance out. You know, weaker enemy versus weaker ally would be the same as the stronger enemy versus the stronger ally, but no. Generally, the weaker enemy will take out the weaker ally significantly faster than the others. And this becomes a very big issue if you end up accidentally going to one of the stronger allies to save them first. Whether you don't check this, because I never check these, in larger maps especially, if you go for those ones first, there's a very high chance that the weaker allies will die before you can actually reach them. It's not really much of a problem on smaller maps like this one. I would say this is like a medium-sized map, but on very large maps, it is so fucking obnoxious. You pretty much have to gun for the weakest ally right away who's fighting the weakest enemy moment one, because if not, there's a very high likelihood that the time that it takes to traverse the stage will be long enough that you will not be able to reach the later allies, and also that weaker one, on time, if you don't go for them first, before they die. Is a very strange design decision, kind of counterintuitive to what you would think. You know, the stronger enemies being weaker at taking out your allies than the weaker enemies, but no, that's just kind of the way it works out. I suppose it works better for a in-stage progression. You know, you generally want to go after the weaker enemies first, that way you can slowly increase your bravery rank, but from a just on paper logic thing, it very, very strange logic. And of course, Mitsunari is just 1 point away from reaching Confidant. Always my favorite. And since that is the case, I think after visiting the Sanctuary, I think I'll do a very short stage. One where instead of focusing on squeezing out as much regard as possible, just one that I can get a couple of regard points and finish as quickly as possible. That way I can swap him out with a different character, and then go for the true grinding. Luckily this is one of the, well, not a super small stage, but it's about a medium-sized one. So it should not take too long to do this one, especially since it's an enemy capture mission, not a commander defeat or an ally rescue mission. These are generally the easiest to complete fastest, because even if you're at a way too low of rank, it is still very easy to capture enemy camps. Because the only major enemy you actually need to worry about is the base commander. And base commanders, even at higher ranks, are generally pretty weak. They go down quite quickly, even at rank 9. And I am going in circles because I was looking away from the screen for a moment. I did not realize how low of health I had. Should probably go into musou rush just to not die. Yeah, that is the one risk with trying to just very quickly go to the enemy base. You're of course, if you do it too quickly, you're of course going to have way too low of bravery rank to actually take on any major enemies that appear within the enemy base. You will have to deal with those, and that can be a bit annoying. But it's generally not too bad most of the time. You can usually just kind of work around them and take out the base commander, just like that. Especially if you're willing to waste a musou rush. Which I normally don't love doing since I can't use my hero skills while in musou rush mode. But in this case, I'm just trying to quickly defeat this just to get Mitsunari that one last point. Okay, he's confident now. Means I can now switch to someone else, someone who is not him. Get the fuck out of here, Mitsunari. We hate you. That's all. He's not too bad. I haven't played as him. He's not in Samurai Warriors 1, but I believe he is in 2. So I know I was kind of poking fun at Rio, but she looks so out of place next to the DOA characters. But fucking, if you think she looks out of place, look at the Atelier characters. I love the way they look. Same with I think Knights of Azure is what it's called. I love the way they look, but compared to someone like William Neo, who is right next to Sophie in the character select menu, they look so odd. This man with like realistic facial hair compared with Sophie, who has like very large anime eyes. It does give this game a very neat style though. It's very unique. It has kind of grown on me. Well, now I figured they'd be more stylized, I guess. So funny you say that, because if I remember correctly, I think it was in a Famitsu article. There was actually an interview with, I believe, the director of this game, and they asked why they went with the art style they chose and didn't decide to make a more consistent style for every character. And apparently at some point in development, they were considering making everyone have a more consistent, samey art style. But they said that it would look weird if someone like Sophie from the Atelier games had like a more realistic style, or if someone from the DOA games had a more cartoony style. So they decided instead to just kind of roll with it and keep them all in their original art styles. And it does look very, very weird, but I do think that they did probably choose the better option. They do look a bit odd next to each other, but it kind of gives the game its own special flavor. Odd looking, but it's odd looking in a good way, I feel like. Also, it probably saved them a lot on Athat. It would look weird is an awful answer when your game still looks weird after the change. Okay, but like, fair, but see, now it looks weird in a way where every character is still recognizable as themselves. I think if they had changed the art style to everyone having a more consistent style, their original styles are so different that I feel like some characters would maybe look unrecognizable. Like Sophie with a more like realistic art style, I feel like would look not like Sophie. And by comparison, someone like fucking, I don't know, Mitsunari Ishida would probably not entirely look like himself in a different art style. So I guess it's like, in both cases it looks weird, but at least in this case it's weird but recognizable. I think it's one of those things though that after looking at it for so long, it's kind of grown on me. It does look weird, but it looks weird in a very unique way. I don't think there are very many other games that are crossovers that take this exact stance of keeping the original art styles no matter how uncanny they look next to each other. And it's really funny. That's the other thing, it looks really funny. Like for example, William Neo, Mr. Neo, looks so out of place, even compared to the DOA characters. Like, the DOA characters look weird next to Atelier Sophie, but like, they're realistic looking, but they're like anime realism. William just kind of looks like a real guy. So it's like, it's even more weird with him. And so it's kind of funny. It's very odd, but odd in a unique and kind of funny way. Like fucking putting Atelier Sophie next to William Neo looks so fucking weird, but it's weird in a funny way. To be fair, I'm a huge fan of the trope of cast of normal ass people with one weird ass little cartoon guy, so I'm fine with it. Yeah, that's basically this game. Cause like, it's about like a 50-50 split of the cartoonish looking characters next to the semi-realistic looking characters. But you have all of the DOA characters, the Samurai Warriors characters, Dynasty Warriors, Neo, Ninja Gaiden, all of those characters I feel like look more in the realistic category. But then for the cartoony category, you have Nobunaga Oda, the Atelier characters, again, Knights of Azure, I think is the name of that game. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like that's wrong. Rio. It's like a 50-50 split. So I feel like if you do think it looks super weird, you can potentially just make a full team of only the cartoony looking characters or only the realistic characters. And like, you'll still get a bit of overlap between both sides, but I feel like it will look less weird overall. You'll at least only be seeing the characters of whichever style you choose more frequently. I think the ones that ironically look the weirdest aren't even like the crossover characters. It's the original characters. These three. I think these are the three weirdest looking characters because I feel they try hitting a kind of mid-ground between both sides. They have like the cartoony eyes and proportions, but also like kind of the semi-realistic textures and stuff. They don't look terrible, but I would say out of the entire cast, they're probably the ones that look the most uncanny on their own, just because they try striking a mid-ground, and I wouldn't necessarily say they fail at that mid-ground, but they do look a bit weird. Like, they look weird compared to anyone. Like, look at them next to Rio, they don't quite fit with her, but then also look at them next to Zhao Yun, don't quite fit with them either. One of these days a crossover game will do a fully 2D anime character in a 3D environment, and I will be so enthusiastic for that moment. That would be really interesting, like just a, not even 2D styled, but just straight up like 2D character in a 3D environment. I guess almost like Paper Mario in a way, but not exactly. I feel like that would be very, very, very interesting. I know there are some games that do that, but not quite on like, not quite in the anime style. But that would look very interesting. I cannot wait until I'm done with Kasumi. I don't know if she'll end up being my least favorite character by the end, but she is one of very few characters that even after playing her a ton, and kind of figuring out a rotation for her, that rotation still doesn't feel great. Like, even playing her at what I believe is her most efficient, she still just doesn't feel that fun to play. A very rare case for this game. Most characters in this game are great, but I feel like Kasumi is one of the rare cases of even playing her at her most efficient still kinda doesn't feel that great. I wouldn't even say that she sucked necessarily. She's fine, she's passable. I just don't think she's very fun. Trying to think of what other characters would probably be equal contenders for my least favorite. And I'm genuinely not sure. There are definitely other characters I dislike more than Kasumi. I don't hate her, she's not that bad, but off the top of my head, I can't really think of any specific characters that I hate more than her. There are definitely characters that are more inefficient to play. I think probably the least efficient character from what I have gathered is probably Marie Rose, but I think her playstyle is kind of fun despite that lack of efficiency. So despite her kind of arguably being worse, I do think she's more fun. So it wouldn't be her. Maybe Christophorus, just because she requires more setup than even most other setup focused characters and doesn't pay off super well. But even then, like, I still think I have a decent rotation down on her. It's just not like the most efficient. Maybe Ayane? Possibly. Another DOA character. I guess it's both of the DOA characters that I don't particularly love. But even then, like, she's not bad. She's just kind of discount Ryu Hayabusa. She has not the same kit, but just a close enough kit to Ryu Hayabusa's that he kind of just doesn't feel that great by comparison to him. But she doesn't feel terrible in a vacuum, just kind of by comparison to another character in the same game. I guess Oibu. Yeah, probably Oibu. Honestly, as unfortunate as it is, I think the only other character I can think of that would be a heavy contender off the top of my head for me liking them less than Kasumi at the moment would probably be Oibu. Which is so fucked up because he is, you know, pretty notoriously the best character in almost every musou he's in. Dynasty Warriors, he's always super overpowered by intention. To my knowledge, even in Warriors All-Stars, he's pretty broken. I mean, not Warriors All-Stars, I'm playing that. I mean, Warriors Orochi, the other crossover game. To my knowledge, he's pretty overpowered in that as well. But this is the one game where he is kind of not only not broken, he kind of sucks. Ubu is not very good in this game, unfortunately. His attack animations are very long. They have certain dependencies, such as characters being directly in front of him, like directly in front of him, in order to even do his full combos. His AoE is fine, but not great. His damage output is alright, but he can't juggle. He kind of just sucks. I think he's probably the only character I would say I like less than Kasumi in this game. But even then, like, the amount that I've played Oibu, while definitely more than I had played Kasumi before starting the regard grinding, still isn't that much, so it's not impossible. He could grow on me a tiny bit. Probably not, but not impossible. And so I wouldn't even necessarily say that he is absolutely my least favorite character, he's just currently my least favorite. But that could change. I don't think at this point my opinion on Kasumi will change though. we're close enough to the end of the regard grind. I've played her enough that I think I have enough of a feel on her to just kind of know that she doesn't feel great to play, unfortunately. Actually, maybe Horo. I kind of forgot about her, but Horo is another character I'm not a huge fan of. So maybe her as well. I think Lu Bu and Horo are probably the only two characters that are contenders for being my least favorite other than Kasumi. Which is unfortunate. As a character, I do like Kasumi decently. I know a bit about her from DOA, and while she's a bit basic, I do like a lot of her lore. You know, again, things from that game that I will not spoil, but she's not a terrible character, so it is a bit sad that she's so not especially fun in this game, but oh well. Okay, let's see how close we are in this. Okay, we have made a bit of progress. Not a ton, but you know, we still have 31 more atelier items to collect. That shouldn't be too bad. That means we've gotten 9 in the last hour. Not super fast, but fast enough that we should be able to start the New Game Plus resets either next stream or the one after that. However, really quickly, I'm going to very quickly take a BRB just to refill my water, because I have went through that a bit faster than anticipated. So I will need to take just a moment to refill my water, and then I will return in just a moment. Take your time. Thank you very much. It won't be too long though, it'll just be like 2 or 3 minutes. BRB. Water has been refilled and I have returned. Now time to get back to the grinding. Cursed Twitch automatically turning my emoticons into emotes. Yeah, I also find that so annoying. Because I use emoticons constantly, but I hate the Twitch emotes. I know that there's a way to change what the emotes will look like, to be like different smiley faces, but I don't know if there's actually a way to like fully like turn off the emote swapping. I think you can only change what it looks like. Okay, no. I was gonna say, did the orb despawn while I was looking for it? While I was trying to grab it? Because that does occasionally happen. Those orbs despawn way faster than they should. If you don't grab them the second you see them, there is a very high chance they will disappear. It's very annoying. It's incredibly obnoxious. It's not too common of an issue as long as you grab them as soon as you see them. But if your hero skills are already recharged and you want to use them up before you go ahead and grab it, the time that it takes to go through your full rotation of hero skills will often be enough for that orb to despawn. It's very obnoxious. And again, it's not such a common issue that it's a major problem. Nothing game ruining, but it is really fucking obnoxious. It's a very annoying little lack of quality of life thing. I wish they lasted even like 20 seconds longer, just enough to not have to worry when you have maxed out hero skills. Okay. Yeah, I like using all of the like dual hero skills as soon as they're available. I like using those at least once whenever I have them in. Did it already despawn? I saw the orb. I think it already despawned. Dude, it's exactly what I was talking about. It will despawn near instantaneously if you do not immediately grab it. Unrelated, but just learning the acronym for the first Senran Kagura game is POG. That makes me very happy. Yeah, if I remember, its name is Portrait of Girls, I think the English translation for the title is. I never realized that is a really funny acronym. I'm very excited to eventually get to the other Senran Kagura Musos, ones other than just First Renewal, because while I didn't hate First Renewal, it was very clearly held back a lot by being a remake of a 3DS game, and a pretty faithful one at that. So the stages were the biggest problem with that game. Character movesets were pretty fun, a lot of core combat mechanics were perfectly fine, but stages kind of fucking suck in that game. They're very dull, often don't have any interesting objectives aside from just defeat like 10 enemies. Not even like 100 enemies, just like 10. They can often be completed in like 30 seconds, very boring, but I think that's largely due to the fact that it's a remake of a 3DS game. I feel like the other Senran Kagura Musos that were made as Musos from the beginning will probably be significantly better. And it will be a bit before I get to those. I don't want to play them right away, considering that I played Burst Renewal like 6 months ago, if even that. I don't even know if it's been a full 6 months, but I feel like playing the rest of the series this shortly afterwards would be a bit too quick. But once I do eventually play those, I do think I'll end up enjoying those a lot more than Burst Renewal, assuming the stages are at least a little bit better. They don't even have to be amazing, just more than fight 15 enemies, and almost all of them took 30 seconds to a minute in Burst Renewal. It was very dull, especially when redoing them over and over for 100%. But I do hope that the other Senran Kagura games, once I get to those, are a lot better, and I think they will be. Since the only real issue is that one problem, just the stages. The actual combat, pretty great. The characters are pretty fantastic. I like them. As tropey as a lot of them are, I do like the characters in Senran Kagura. So seeing more of them in the other games will be very interesting. And a game built from the ground up as a musou and not a 3DS remake will likely be significantly more interesting, I hope. How close is everyone? Okay, not very, but... I think for this stage, after I rescue the allies, instead of going directly towards the enemy camp, I think I'm instead going to spend a bit of extra time doing regard grinding, resetting hero skills, using those as much as possible. That way I can speed up that a little bit more, at least for this stage, because for the last few stages, I've been completing them quickly enough that I haven't gotten off a ton of hero skill uses per stage, and that's not great for my regard increasing efficiency. It's been going fairly slow. I really didn't need to use Musou Rush for this, but might as well get it out of the way now. Get one extra small reset on the hero skills. And did an orb spawn? I guess not. Or if an orb did spawn, it already despawned. Yeah, I think probably the most annoying status effect in this game is darkness. what it does is it severely slows you down, and well, clearly that's not great. doesn't doesn't make the game feel any better to play, unfortunately. And Nobunaga Oda is very bad about inflicting darkness every time he hits you. So he is a character that isn't especially difficult to fight, but when you are fighting him, he can be very annoying if you let him get off even a couple of hits. So it's so strange, the strange imbalancing of how good the DOA characters are specifically, because I think DOA, if you count Ryu Hayabusa, despite him not really being a DOA character, if you count him, I think DOA has the largest number of characters from any original series in the roster, and some of them are some of my least favorite. You know, Honoka, Ayane already mentioned, but then also some of the other ones are fantastic. Wait, I said Honoka was one of my least favorites. I meant to say Kasumi, the one I'm playing right now. She's one of my least favorites. Honoka, what I meant to say is Honoka is the exact opposite. I don't know if Honoka is my favorite character in the game. She's very high up there though. She's at least in like my top 5 favorite characters in the roster, probably top 3. She is very good and also very fun. She has a pretty basic playstyle. She's mostly just a typical brawler character. But as far as brawler characters go, that is generally my favorite archetype in Musou's, and she's one of the best. She's really good. She's very good for the archetype overall. Not just in this game, but in Musou's in general. Okay, now, instead of going directly to the enemy base, time to do a little bit of regard grinding. Just to speed that up a little bit, because I have been going very slowly so far in the last hour and a half of the stream. Not making bad progress, but I am going a bit slower than I usually would. I would like to speed that up a tiny bit. No ore, unfortunately. Very, very unfortunate when no orb spawns. Oh, but an orb did spawn here, so that's something at least. That's a nice consolation at the very least. I think I've heard this game's soundtrack frequently enough after putting, I think I'm at like 150 hours in this game at this point. I think I've heard the soundtrack frequently enough that I can't tell if the soundtrack is kind of just really mediocre or if it's just not for me and I've heard it so much that it kind of is just like I've kind of grown tired of it. I cannot say that this is my favorite soundtrack in the world. I think it's very not amazing. It's not terrible, it's fine, but a lot of the tracks that they chose from the games being crossed over aren't my personal favorites. And because you will very frequently go through the same stages over and over, it is very common that you will hear the same track like 4 or 5 times in a row. And even tracks that are not the same will often sound kind of similar. And again, I don't even know if that is actually a problem with the soundtrack itself, or if it's just I've heard it too much. I've heard it too much from grinding this game so much. It could be either one. It could be both, though. This game can simultaneously have a below average soundtrack and also me still be exhausted from hearing about it so much. Okay, that was a pretty good stage for Regard. Hajime isn't maxed yet. He does still have a tiny bit to go, but I am very satisfied with that. I should probably keep doing that. Especially since that was a treasure storehouse stage. Wait, no, never mind. It was the last one we did. Which, I don't know if it was that last stage we did or the one before, but one of those stages got us one single atelier material. Amazing. I wish it was more easy to tell which stages give which materials. You kinda can only really tell from just looking at the material, what materials you received at the end of a stage. Not the easiest to tell while you're inside of a stage, which makes it a lot harder to know that you're in a stage that drops the material you need, and thus to be able to spend extra time in it to grind. Which is why I will very frequently finish a stage, look at the counter, and it will increase by 1 or 2. Because that 1 or 2 is all I bothered grinding for. Same stage yet again, although this is one where I can once again take my time. I probably should have swapped out Hajime for this one, because I don't really want to spend forever in this stage grinding hero skills when Hajime is so close to getting maxed that it would be a bit of a waste. But I guess I can still do it for the other 2 characters. Yeah, the capturing enemy base quests are always the ones that are best to kind of just take your time on, whether it's for grinding hero skills, materials, any kind of grinding, or even just wanting to play slow just cause. These are generally the best for that because of the fact that they are not timed in any way. There's not even a fake time limit. The swiftly capture the enemy base missions, those I consider to have fake time limits, since even if you miss the time limit, there's not any actually real consequences. But these don't even have that. These are just entirely just untimed. as annoying as it is to receive the darkness status element on yourself, it's actually not that useful to put on an enemy. It's not completely worthless. It does mean that they are less likely to interrupt you, since their attack speed is lowered, but it's not nearly as useful as another status effect such as freeze or burn. Burn, I think, is the best status effect, because it lets you take on enemies that are stronger than you much more easily, since it is a percentage-based health drain. It's not dependent on your personal bravery rank, or even character level. It is just a flat percentage. So it is very good for tackling enemies that you probably shouldn't take on quite yet. Freeze is also alright, especially if you are able to, if you get lucky enough to proc it several times, you can kind of just keep an enemy completely frozen non-stop. Darkness, I believe, has a higher proc chance. However, despite that, despite the higher proc chance, the actual effects are way less useful than freeze, despite having a similar effect of effectively stopping enemy movements. And love is another status element. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not even entirely certain what the love status element does. I remember I did know a while ago. I know there is the game does tell you at some point. So I could just look at that to see what it does. I completely forgot though. It's not one that you see super often. I think it just like lowers the damage you do, I believe. But enemies usually don't have that one. It's very rare. So enemies more often than not will not use the love status effect. So it's not very common you'll get it on yourself. And while a decent amount of character cards do have the love status effect placed on them, and thus you, as your playable characters, will end up using them pretty decently, whatever its effect is, it's minimal enough that it's not really ever super noticeable. I would say it is probably the worst of the status effects in this game. And there's also lightning. Lightning's another one, and it, to my knowledge, is basically just extra damage, extra flat damage, not percentage based though, unlike burn. So I think burn is kind of just better. Kind of like in Samurai Warriors, because I felt like in that as well. Or not Samurai Warriors, Dynasty Warriors 3. I felt like in that as well, lightning wasn't as useful as burn in a lot of cases, although darkness or death, whatever you want to call that status element, in Dynasty Warriors 3 is completely broken. So it's very funny that I would consider it probably tied with love as the worst status element in this game, considering that in older Dynasty Warriors games, death or darkness, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most broken status effect. Because in that game, it just straight up insta-kills weak enemies, and strong enemies does like 80% of their health in one attack. But not in this game. In this game, it is merely a slowdown, and that slowdown is not super useful. I love spending so long manually going through each of these cards. I so wish that there was just an auto crash option and also a skip option within the like earning cards menu, because there is not. You have to manually press A through each and every one of them. I don't know why. It's such a minor quality of life thing that pretty much every, not just Musou, but every game in general usually has when you unlock items, but not this one. And especially if you are doing stages with high card drop chances, you will get like 30 plus and it will take like fucking 20 seconds to go through all of them. And 20 seconds isn't like crazy, not too bad, but when it's happening almost every stage, it does get very obnoxious very quickly. See, how many characters do we have left? I'm not counting these four since they are not required for gallery events. So we have Williams, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 characters left. Minus Arnis and Pop. Minus the ones that we currently have equipped, who are very close to being maxed out. We have 11 other characters left to go. So that should hopefully be doable within the next hour or two. I will probably keep this to around a 3 to 4 hour long stream, as with most other Warriors All-Stars grinding streams have been. Likely won't go too far beyond that, so hopefully we can finish Kasumi within that time, and if we can't, I may end up doing a very tiny amount of off-stream grinding just to finish her off. But whether I have to do that or not, I think we've made relatively decent progress so far this stream. I wish regard grinding were more effective without having Honoka on my team. Because while I don't hate her, I do like having her on my team at all times. It does obviously mean that's one less regard spot to grind. So I can only grind 3 characters at a time as opposed to 4, which is what the intended number of party members is. But because of Honoka's skill, resetting other hero skills with a 1 in 3 chance, it is way more efficient long term to always have Honoka on your team than it is to remove her in place of a 4th member. Because you can potentially more than double your regard gain per stage by getting lucky with her rolls, compared to not having her on your team at all. She is unfortunately a very efficient character to have equipped at all times, despite her taking up a party slot. We are getting pretty good Honoka luck this stage though, so that's very nice. In fact, extremely good Honoka luck, damn. Yeah, we're getting fucking crazy luck with her. Getting very, very many ultimate scissors rotation. So hopefully, that will help us make a lot of progress at the end of this stage toward the regard grind. I think we had like 10 rotations just while standing in that one base, and one of those was from picking up the hero orb, not the not her skill specifically, but still. Getting that many all in such a short amount of time is very good. Very, very nice, of course. Yeah, the only unfortunate thing about Honoka's party member slot taking up is that it is a luck-based thing. It is pretty likely to get her ultimate scissor most of the time, because it is a 1 in 3 chance, and you know, that's a pretty high chance, all things considered, considering how frequently you can use it. But it does mean that it is absolutely possible to get very unlucky in an individual stage and have to fucking not get any extra hero skill resets from her. It's unlikely, but it is possible. Most of the time you will at least get a couple ultimate scissor resets from her in every stage you do, but it is definitely possible to, on rare occasions, not get them and just get 0. And those are never very fun when they do happen on the very, very rare instances. Please heal soon. Okay, good. Yeah, Ayane's skill, when you're fighting her, her hero skill that she uses against you will make it so that you cannot use any of your hero skills or like extra abilities in general. No special attack, no hero skills, no musou rush, none of that for about like 10 to 15 seconds, I believe. It's very annoying for my specific purposes. Luckily it doesn't last too long. It doesn't do damage, nothing like that. It is just annoying, and that's really it. But it is never fun, especially when I'm trying to capture a base, because as I've mentioned before, once you capture a base, a hero skill orb appears, and those orbs despawn pretty quickly. So if you have to not only wait for your rotation to reset, but also wait for your hero skills to heal, to even be able to use that rotation, it gets very, very obnoxious. It can get very obnoxious because it is very likely that in the time it takes to wait for that to restore itself, the hero skill orb will end up despawning, and that is never very enjoyable. Okay. Just wanted to get off one more pocket charge before I pick that orb up. Luckily got that, so now we can go back to the normal rotation. I just remembered that Sophie is one of the few characters that I do not yet have the A rank card for, which I will be getting it. The way that you get those A rank cards with 4 slots is by completing the last quest in these quest lines per character, and this is Sophie's quest, so I will be getting it after this one, but I did kind of forget that I did not already have hers. Luckily I won't be playing as her for quite a while, so I don't have to worry about it right now, but I do need to make sure to set that up and fully equip her with all of her skills, and definitely not throw it away once I do get it. That may still be quite a bit though, I have to get 30 more atelier items, and those drop rates, while not very low, getting 200 does still take quite a bit of time. The stage is really funny if you're playing as Ryu Hayabusa, because while he can do this on a couple of stages, this is by far the best stage to test it on. So if you do a light attack while he is in the air, Ryu Hayabusa does a kind of, I think it's called swallow dive, I believe it's called. Swallow dive. And when he does that, he basically dashes toward the ground at a very fast rate. And normally when you're just on normal ground level, it doesn't really look weird at all. But if you jump off of a ledge and use it, you can get insane distance really quickly, and even run into walls. because of the way it's like, because of the way that attack is angled at kind of a diagonal, he does not just go directly toward the ground. He goes both toward the ground slightly, but more horizontal movement as well. And when you do that off of a ledge, he will just fucking go crazy distances very quickly. It's unironically a very good transportation method, considering that this game doesn't have a ton of great movement capabilities in the base game. It's kind of character dependent, and he has one of the best movement abilities by complete accident, because I'm pretty sure that's not an intended maneuver. Pretty sure it's a bug, considering how jank it feels. But if you can pull that off in the stages where it works, he has some of the fastest movement in the game by purely through a bug. It's not a bug that breaks anything either. It's a very harmless glitch, so I am very glad that they did not patch it out or anything. It is purely just a little for funsies glitch. Nothing too much of an issue. Just for funsies. But it is genuinely very, very helpful. It's one of the most useful glitches in this game. It's very helpful in this particular stage and a couple others. Nope, no orb. Unfortunately, no orb this time. The biggest reason why you generally want to have Honoka on your team, not only because she just has a chance of constantly giving you hero skill resets at any time, but more importantly, as kind of a backup option for when you capture a base and it doesn't spawn an orb. because that does happen quite often, and when it does, it can be very obnoxious, especially if you are counting on those orbs as your main hero skill reset method. Honoka kind of adds a bit of a buffer where, in cases where they don't spawn, usually her skill will be up, and while it's not guaranteed, it's enough of a chance to kind of reset the hero skills that it kind of makes up for the moments when a base doesn't end up spawning an orb. It's usually more than enough to make up for the difference. Even though you do also, of course, have to deal with the downside of having one less character in your party, it sort of balances out, because it is overall significantly more efficient with her on your team for those 3 that you do have for grinding, compared to having 4. It'd obviously be better if the regard grinding were just faster in general, even with 4 characters, but unfortunately this game decided to have a very, very slow regard grinding process, and so it feels like a near necessity to take up one of your party slots with Honoka at all times in order to not completely fall behind. Okay, Octa's nearly there, Sophie is close, William is just now at rank 4, and then after that, you aren't very close, you're about halfway there. Most of the characters left at least have a little bit of progress toward regard rank 5, so hopefully it won't be too slow. Ooh, that stage. This is not one of my favorite stages to have the rescue allies mission on. It is a fairly large stage with not great routing, a very strict path that you have to go if you want to reach the top right and bottom left corners of the map, and those are always where 2 allies spawn, so it is unfortunately not a great map for this mission type. That is 2 down, 1 more to go. Unfortunately, that last one is at the very bottom left of the map in a relatively large stage, so there is the slight risk of the ally dying before reaching it, but I think it'll be fine. Hopefully, at least. They haven't shown their in trouble message yet, so as long as that hasn't appeared yet, we should have plenty of time to reach them. Probably should have waited a couple more seconds until Plaka's hero skill naturally reset before I grabbed the orb, but it'll be fine. She's already close enough to being maxed out that depending on how much extra grinding I do this stage, I may max her out anyways, just from this one stage. Not impossible. Had to hydrate really quickly. Now back in the game. This time I think I will wait a couple of seconds just for Sophie's to finish. Hopefully the orb will not despawn in the time it takes for this. Okay, good. It did not. Very, very nice. Okay, there's reset 1. Okay, only 1 reset from Hanukkah that time. Not too bad though. Before taking out the enemy commander, I am going to do a little bit of extra hero skill grinding, since I can get away with it. Not a timed mission, and I already rescued all of the allies, so they shouldn't be in too much of danger. It is the perfect time to instead focus on maxing out Regard as much as possible, especially since Plaka is so close to being rank 5. I should, however, go quickly save Shiki. Even though the rescue the allies part of the mission ended at the first half, you will still lose the mission if they die in the second half. It's not as clear, but it does still happen, and that is not great, obviously. Every time I use a hero skill, whenever, like, it will turn your camera around a lot of the time, anytime that happens, it's so disorienting. The worst part is it's not even, like, very consistent. It happens sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. no hero skill or reset that time, but there was a special skill reset. And all of my hero skills were close enough to the reset that I was able to just push all 4 of them straight to the max by using my special attack. And that is why the Dragon's Oracle attribute being put on your weapon is so useful. It allows for those particular situations to occur. It is very helpful in very particular situations. However, those very specific scenarios do actually come up quite often, so it's not quite as niche as it would seem at first glance. I think I am ready to take on the commander though. That should be hopefully enough hero skill uses to, if not bring Pakta up to max, at the very least get her close enough that just one more stage should bring her over the limits. Now let us see how much progress was made after I throw away these worthless cards. Okay, now let us see how much progress was made. Damn, not only Pakta, but also Sophie got to max. And now William is not quite there, but he's close enough that one more high regard farming stage, and he should also be maxed. It's always great when we max out 2 in one go. A very satisfying feeling to see 2 numbers max at once. And that means we have, aside from William, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 more to go. But we are making decent enough progress. Whether we will fully max out Kasumi's regard before the 3 or 4 hour mark, maybe not by the 4 hour mark, but we will at least get close enough to where next stream we can start with a different character, which will be so fucking satisfying. I think the next character in the lineup is Lagrena, and she is actually one of my favorite characters, so we'll be swapping from one of my least favorite characters to play to one of my favorites. Lagrena is a very fun character, in my opinion. One of the very rare trap setting archetypes that are actually both very fun and also actually incredibly efficient in a musou. She is surprisingly good, despite her archetype being one that is usually not the most efficient objectively within most musous. But she's actually great, very fun, and she's a character that I have played enough of that I do actually have a rotation with her set in stone, unlike Kasumi, who kind of just button mash, which is never the most fun way of playing these games. Despite what people say, I always hear people say that, oh, musos are just button mashing games. The best way to play them is to just button mash randomly, and that is absolutely not the case at all. Obviously, you can get away in a lot of musos by just button mashing, this game included. This game is pretty forgiving, very easy. A lot of characters also do have extra nuance to their playstyles, but aren't necessary to play them at a baseline. So there are a lot of situations in some musos where you can just get away with button mashing, but at least in my opinion, it's never the most fun way to play. Button mashing may work, it may get you by in a lot of the lower difficulty games, but it just never feels too fun in my opinion. And Kasumi is a pure button mash character for me personally. None of her attacks feel the greatest, and so any rotation with her, even the most efficient ones, don't feel amazing in my opinion. So they don't really feel too much better than just basic button mashing. It's unfortunate to say, but there is at least a couple characters in this game, despite its overall high quality in character design. It is, even this game is not completely exempt from characters that don't feel the most fun, and Kasumi is definitely one of those that fit under that category. This is one of the few stages where I do actually feel like the crossover segment of the stage, the part that does actually feel like the original game it's based on, does actually shine through more than the basic environment segment, because most of the stage you do actually spend in this town, in the entire left side of the map. A lot of missions require you to spend most of your time in it, and even in missions where you're not required to be here a lot, there are enough bases on this side of the stage that you will want to go out of your way for in a lot of cases, that it doesn't feel like you're spending all of your time in generic grassland area, but rather you're spending it in this little town. I think the game that this stage is a crossover area of, I believe, is Haruka, the game that both Darius and Hajime Arima are from. I think it's from that game. I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel like a crossover area from any other game that I recognize that are in this. And it is a nice looking little town. Although I'm not even 100% sure if it is their stage. There is a mission that involves Hajime Arima that takes place in this stage, and that's the main reason why I believe it is, but I could be wrong. It could also potentially be a stage from another game. I don't know enough about Haruka to say for certain whether it is actually from that game, or if it's just a different game entirely. But either way, no matter what game the crossover is, it is one of the better crossover stages. An actually decently significant portion of the stage takes place within this town area, as opposed to the generic grassland portion. And I wish more stages were like this. I mentioned it a lot earlier when we were on the Rio stage, the casino. That stage is probably the single worst case of it, where such a small portion of that stage is taken up by the actual casino that the stage is meant to focus on. That you can do an entire mission without even ever entering the casino. There are some stage types where you will be spawned outside of the casino and all of the stage objectives are also outside of it. You don't even have to ever enter the crossover portion of the crossover stage with Rio. And while it's not the end of the world exactly, it does result in a lot of these stages feeling very generic, despite the fact that they really shouldn't be. A crossover game with crossover stages that don't feel like them is not a great way to design said stages. I will be very excited once I can swap INA of my party to someone else, because there are some characters, not a ton. INA is really the worst of it. There are some characters who, when you use their hero skill, the attack animation is long enough that even if you get a Honoka reset, you won't be able to use it for another 3 or 4 seconds because INA will still be in her hero skill attack animation. It's not too bad, it's only really an issue with her. Not many other characters have that same problem, but for the few characters that do, it is very annoying. And it unfortunately makes it to where it is not the most fun to regard grind with Honoka. I mean, not Honoka, INA. Because of how she interrupts Honoka's resets. It's a mild annoyance, but it's an annoyance that adds up when you're going through these stages over and over and resetting hero skills several times per stage. I should probably rotate saves, it's been a bit since I've done that. I should probably also enter the hot spring. I don't think I did that after the previous stage. Oh, it's the winning horse. The winning horse from the iconic video game Winning Post. William was maxed out. INA is very close. Darius is also decently close. Then we have Ryo Hayabusa, and then we'll be a couple more down. We're making alright. We're making alright progress. It is possible that we may be able to finish the last few regards before the 4-hour mark of the stream. it's a bit of a 50-50 at the moment, but it very well could happen. And hopefully it does. Again, I am fine with doing a tiny amount of off-stream grinding if we don't max out Kasumi's regard this stream, but I would prefer to not have to if not necessary. Because next stream, no matter what, I do want to play a different character. Because the next character in the lineup is Ilaiya, and I really like her. She has one of my favorite playstyles in this game. I've never played any of the Deception games. I really want to. This game has made me very interested in her and the game she's from. I've heard it's kind of a tower defense type game, and that does seem fun. But I don't know too much about her original game beyond that. But in this game, Ilaiya is one of the most fun characters in my opinion. He is a very, very enjoyable character to play as. She is a trap setting character, but a very fast trap setting character, who is also very high damage in both AoE and single target. Ilaiya is a very good character, and so even if we end up having to go through her for 3 or 4, probably not 3 or 4, probably 2, maybe 3 streams, I would significantly prefer to spend a lot of time with her than I do Kasumi. Because Kasumi is not my favorite in this game, far from it in fact, but Ilaiya is a lot more of an enjoyable character to play. Ah, fuck. I muted myself about 20 seconds ago to cough, and I did not realize I was still muted. Yeah, I was not paying a ton of attention, so I accidentally let Toketsugu die. It's not too much of a setback in progress, but it is still a bit annoying. I was too focused on getting the regard resets on time. And so I ended up not paying as much attention as I should have to the actual intended stage objective. I'm getting a lot of Honoka resets right now, which is good, but there's also an orb right there, and I would like to grab that orb. And never mind. It has despawned. Yeah, that's one of the few problems with Honoka, is even if you do get really lucky and get a ton of resets like I am right now, it's kind of crazy how many I'm getting in a row. Even if you get those, if you are in an area with an orb, it's kind of a bit of a setback, a very minor one, but it is a bit of a setback if that orb despawns while you're trying to cycle through those Honoka resets. Usually not too common of an issue. It's not something you'll have a problem with constantly, but it is just common enough to be a bit of an annoyance on occasion. And that was definitely one of those. However, I'm also not going to complain about getting, I think that was 5 scissors in a row. Definitely not going to complain about it. Because no matter how mildly obnoxious it is, for it to result in me missing a single orb. That single orb is only one reset, whereas, you know, 5 Honoka resets are 5 resets, and they're effectively the same value. I probably should have used a special attack to reset those, since they were so close to resetting naturally anyways, instead of grabbing the orb right away. But after that last moment, I didn't want to take the chance of missing it entirely. Wouldn't have been much of an issue if I had, but it's still always slightly annoying, just annoying enough for me to want to avoid it when possible. And I'm once again going to be doing a bit of hero skill grinding before I go for the end objective. That way I can hopefully get Ilaiya to max as soon as possible. She's the main one that I'm worried about, because because her skill is so long, it ends up throwing me off occasionally on Honoka scissor resets. Because all of the time, Ilaiya will still be in her attack animation. And that does throw me off just enough to where I don't really want to keep her on my team as much as possible. I would like to replace her as soon as realistically possible. So if I can max her out from just this one stage, that would be great. Whether I will, not entirely sure. She is decently close to being maxed out on Regard, but not so close to where it's a guarantee from a single run. And here is a reset orb. Yeah, sometimes if you don't get the orb the first time you're in a base, it will respawn later occasionally, but it's usually not best to rely on that, because the time it takes to respawn is pretty long, and it's not even a guarantee that it will. It's generally best to get the skill reset orb the first time it shows up. But if you do miss it the first time, it's not the end of the world. It will respawn eventually, even if it takes a while. And in cases like this, where I'm spending longer than I would normally on the stage anyways, for the sake of regard grinding, having to come back for a couple isn't that big of a deal, even if it's not my favorite thing. Dude, that was what I was saying before. Her attack animation is long enough for her hero skill that it can take quite a while, a bit of extra time, and while it's not enough to really be any major issue, it does throw off my rotation a bit, and that's not the most amazing. Mildly annoying. Ryu Hayabusa also has a somewhat long attack animation, but it usually will end either before the scissor reset, or at the very least close enough to it that it's never really an actual issue that comes up. Ayane's is significantly longer though, to the point where it almost always will interrupt your rotation, at least for a couple of seconds. Now let's hope that Ayane was maxed out from that, and if not, I will probably do another very quick stage instead of focusing on grinding. And she did, okay, cool. Both her and Darius actually got maxed out, and despite not even being on my team, Tokitsugu got a bit of progress. Yeah, sometimes the NPCs who aren't actually on your team will occasionally get a bit of progress as well towards their regard maxing, just passively from being in the stage normally. It's nothing too major. You're usually not going to actually max out a character from that extra bit of passive gain, but it is just enough to be very helpful in very small pieces occasionally. And I should probably check how close I am to this. Still very far. We have not gotten very many from the last few stages. But we did get one at some point, so we're only 29 away as opposed to 30. Oh yeah. Still going to be quite a while, but you know, it's more than 0, and that's good, I suppose. Have any points respawn anywhere on the map? Seems like probably not. Nope. I guess I will just have to do the hard drop stages. The Thieves Lair, I mean. Actually, I'm gonna see. Is there a rush battle? Okay, that is a rush battle. I want to double check that because these are really good for grinding regard. If you have a couple characters that are very close to max but aren't quite there, it is very easy to go into a rush battle and immediately max like several of them out at once. It is probably the single best individual stage type for maxing out regard. The problem though is it's also one of the rarer stages. Not super rare, but there's only a few that are set on the map, and they can appear randomly from just walking around, but that's of course entirely up to your luck. There's not really any way to intentionally decide which stages appear from walking around. Yeah, as you can see, even when I'm not getting my Honoka resets, I am making a ton of progress toward resetting hero skills constantly. And the reason why is because you're killing tons of enemies, you're constantly using hero skills, those hero skills are hitting tons of enemies, resetting themselves. It's kind of an endless loop of hero skill resets and uses. And this can be pulled off to an extent in other stages as well, but it's so significantly faster on rush battles that they are by far the most efficient individual stage type to max out regard with. It's especially good with this specific team setup because because Millennia is a great character to have in these stages. Her hero skill creates a vacuum that pulls in all enemies and then throws rocks at them, and those rocks basically instantly kill them. And so she's very good at racking up very quick KOs. And those quick KOs not only increase your KO counter, but also increase your hero skill cooldowns. Yeah, so I did just now get a Honoka reset, and another one. However, I haven't been getting that many for this stage. Despite that, I still have made a ton of progress with hero skill resets, and the reason why is just because the efficiency at which you can reduce cooldowns in the stage normally. Honoka resets are still, of course, useful since they are an instant reset no matter what, but they're not quite as necessary as they are on other stage types. On these, even without them, you'll still be making more than enough progress toward resetting the cooldowns for it to not really be a necessity to get by. However, it is on other stages. As you can see, similar to Ayane, by the way, Millennia is another character who has a very long attack animation, which does make her kind of get in the way a bit of the hero skill reset rotations. But her skill is so useful that it kind of makes up for it in my eyes. Yeah, it's a little bit annoying to have to wait a bit longer for her attack animation to go through fully, but usually her attack animation itself will do so much damage and kill so many enemies so quickly that she herself, specifically in these stages, not as much in regular stages, but in rush battles specifically, she can often almost work as a Honoka reset on her own. There's almost a pseudo Millennia reset because of how many enemies she kills so quickly. Oh. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. The game had some frame drops while doing that. I thought it was gonna crash for a moment. I've never seen that happen. The only crashes I've ever had are from the hot springs, which that wasn't a crash. It felt like it was going to be, but it ended up not being one. But I thought for a second it would, and that would have been heartbreaking if it had, because I have done a lot of hero skill regard progress this stage. And so had I crashed here, it would have been not the most fun. I would not have been too horribly upset since these stages aren't especially long. It's not hard to do another one. It would still be a little bit obnoxious. I would not love it. And the stage is done. That was like 3, maybe 4 minutes I spent in that, and I got off. While I didn't count them, I probably got off close to like 25 hero skill resets in total between the Honoka ones and the just natural ones. And as you can see, that one stage maxed out Nobunaga Oda, Millennia, and Ryu Hayabusa all at once. Rush battles are so incredibly efficient for getting regard. To the point where honestly I should probably just run around in circles on the world map until one appears if I really want to play at max efficiency. The only problem with that is because it's random chance whether they'll appear or not, it can take a bit of running around before one appears. Despite me saying that, one did just now appear on the map. So, very cool. But I do also need to change characters. Lagarna, Oka, and Murray Roads. And after these 3, we will have Hokatsugu, Horo, and actually I think that's it. Yeah, I believe that those are the only 2 left after these ones. So we have this set, which, since a rush battle did just appear, we may actually be able to finish all 3 of these at once. And then after that, we will have the 2 other characters. So I think we can definitely finish this by the 4-hour mark. I was originally very hesitant on saying that we would definitely catch up before then, but we are close enough that I'm fairly certain we will max out Kasumi before the 4-hour mark, which is very nice. I'm glad that we will most likely reach our stream goal by the end of stream. And then after that will be Lagrina, and Lagrina we will not finish next stream. I did a lot of prep work for Kasumi to make sure that we finished her this stream. I have not done that for Lagrina. Most of what I have on her is largely stuff that I got from my normal story mode run. She does not have that high of regard with anyone. So she will be at least 2 streams, possibly even 3, but I would significantly prefer to spend 3 streams on a character like her than Kasumi. I know I keep saying it, not to repeat constantly, I don't like Kasumi. She is one of my least favorites in the game, whereas Lagrina is one of my favorites, probably top 5. So spending multiple streams on her will be significantly more tolerable than spending an equal number of streams on Kasumi. Also, this is an Atelier Sophie stage, and I likely won't get a ton of material since it is a rush battle, and rush battles are not great for grinding material specifically. It is still possible that I could get a few of the Atelier items while I am in this, and that would be great. I would love to get both Kasumi Regard progress and also on top of that, Sophie quest progress at the same time. That would be absolutely wonderful if I could do that. Although it's pretty unlikely that we'll finish it from this stage. As I said, this stage, while it does drop quite a few Atelier items normally, rush battles aren't great for grinding items. It is still possible to get some items from these, especially if you use Musou Rush, but in general, it's just not the best option. These stages are much better for regard grinding, and also money grinding. Money grinding I think they're alright for as well, but regard grinding is what they are by far best for. Luckily that is my main priority, so even if it's not great for filling out that quest, it will at the very least be significantly great for filling out Kasumi's regard. Drinking water while that special attack animation was going on. Yeah, a lot of the time I will use these very long special attack or skill animations as an opportunity to drink water. So if you ever see me kind of just stand there for a couple of seconds after those are done, it usually means that I am drinking water. And I did not finish in time before the attack animation ended. Because of the layout of the stage, this one is a bit less efficient for rush battle regard grinding than the other one. It is still pretty efficient, I'm not gonna act like it's not, but it is slightly less so than the other one we were on, purely because the shape of the stage. In the other one, the enemies that increase your time spawn basically directly in the path you're walking, whereas on this one, they kind of spawn in their own little alcoves, so you have to go out of your way to attack them. When Honoka resets, let's see if we get a second, and we do not. But again, as I've mentioned several times, rush battles are very good for just natural resets on hero skills, so it's not too bad if we miss out on a couple of Honoka resets. In fact, depending on how quickly you clear out enemies in these rush battles, it may actually potentially be more efficient to swap out Honoka for another character. That way you're grinding 4 instead of 3. That would only be the case in rush battles. Regular battles is not the case at all. Hero skill reset cooldowns are slow enough that Honoka is basically a necessity, but in rush battles specifically, it's still useful to bring her along, but it may or may not be more efficient to not bring her, and instead bring someone else who actually needs the regard. I haven't done much testing myself of that to see if the numbers are higher one way or the other, but I just kind of get the feeling that based on how quickly natural cooldown resets happen in those, it may actually be faster to not even bring along Honoka, since she does rely on luck, and it is very possible that you can go a decent amount of time without her resets to begin with. Trying to walk around enough to find a rush battle may not be the best idea. I'll do a production-based stage. Yeah, like I said, the main problem with grinding only rush battles is that there's not always one available on the map, and it can sometimes take longer than it's worth to run around to try getting one to appear. It's not always worth it. Sometimes it is. That is why I will occasionally go out of my way to run in circles specifically to spawn one, but it is not always worth it by any means. Yeah, this is probably one of my least favorite maps. It does look decently nice. I like the way this map looks, but actually navigating it is probably like top 3 worst maps in the game to walk around. I know top 3 doesn't sound like that much considering that there's only like 10 maps in this game, but look, those bottom 3 are pretty fucking bad. And this is one of them, and it is almost entirely because of the fact that if you look at the minimap, you will see that there are arrows pointing toward the center. That means that those are one-way routes. You can't go from the other direction. And, you know, obviously the center of the map is the portion that you will probably be traversing through most frequently in order to get to other areas. And so, for all of those situations, you have to pretty much loop around if you want to get anywhere. The center of the map is basically useless for navigation. Like, you have to spend some time in it, but there are no direct paths to the left, right, or bottom. The top does, but the bottom, the other 3 cardinal directions do not, and it is really obnoxious. It's very unfun to navigate, especially on missions where you have to save your allies. Ally saving missions on this particular stage are the worst. It takes an already pretty unfun mission type and puts it in a stage that makes it significantly more hellish, way more likely for an ally to die before you can even reach them than it is in even most other stages. I am, of course, going out of my way to do a bit of regard grinding as usual, but I think for this stage, I'm more so just trying to get through it with a bit extra, but not going out of my way to capture everything for all of the resets, just because of the fact that I think I would rather, at this high of a regard rank level, and this close to Kasami's max out, I'm not too worried about whether we'll make it under the 4-hour mark. We probably will. And so because of that, these stages I'm kind of just breezing through normally with a bit of extra grinding, and instead saving the real regard grinding for the rush battles. And I would just only do those, but again, they're not always available, and it's not the most fun going out of your way to spin in circles to hope one of them spawns. Now, let's see if we are close. I doubt that maxed out any individual character, but it would be nice if it did. Okay, Broad Blograna, that's nice. Now Oka and Murray Rose are close enough that the next stage I should be able to just focus on finishing the stage normally, rather than going out of my way to reset hero skills as often as possible, and that should be enough to bring them up to max. Similarly to Millennia, Horo is another character who's decently good for grinding on rush battles, and the reason why is because, similarly to Millennia, it has a vacuum effect. It's not as strong as Monia's vacuum effect. I definitely do think that Monia has a better hero skill overall, but it is still a slight vacuum, and that is enough to still be quite useful in areas with a very high concentration of enemies within a small space. And so she is still, just like Monia, another very good option for rush battles. Even if I do prefer Monia a little bit. Oro and Marie Rose are unfortunately two more characters that have somewhat longer animation times. Not quite as bad as some others, not quite as bad as Ayane or even Monia, but they're still a bit longer than the average character, which is another reason why they are some of the ones that I usually do last. Also because they're in the middle of the character list, because I like kind of encircling it as I choose the order for which characters to grind next, but that's a fairly minor point for it. And I know I said that I was not going out of my way to grind much regard this stage, since two of my characters are so close to being maxed anyways, but I'm getting kind of really good luck with the orb drops and Honeka's scissor reset. Before I kill the leader, I want to get one more off from Oka. That way I can max hers a bit more. And I might as well go for Haneka's as well. No scissors, but still worth at least checking to see if it will be. And that should have maxed out two characters. I don't know if it will max out. I doubt it will max out the third, since pretty much just started grinding them, but it should, hopefully, at the very least, max 2 characters. And then I can move on to the last character to grind, which is, I believe Toketsugu was who it was. Technically, I still have the 4 extra characters, Opuna and the 3 original characters, but as I've said before, those aren't necessary for the gallery, since they don't actually have any gallery events of their own. Okay, good. Brought up Oka and Marie Rose to max, and Horo is the only one who still has a bit to go, but even she's pretty close. But that means I can now swap out Oka for Toketsugu, and then Marie Rose, since everyone else is done, just double checking. I guess I might as well bring in Opuna. Like I said, he's not necessary for the gallery completion, but since I have an empty slot anyways in the party, I might as well just bring up his a little bit. Also, let's see how close we are to this. Okay, we have made a bit more progress. Now we only have 24 left of the atelier materials necessary. We are making slow but steady progress towards maxing out all of that final quest. And once we can do that, hopefully next session or the session afterwards, we can start the new game plus reset. That will massively increase our regard efficiency. Let's see. Oh, not a rush battle. Not a rush battle. I would like to preferably get at least one more rush battle soon. Not a rush battle, not a rush. It's always the exclamation mark ones, but the exclamation marks are basically miscellaneous stages. You know what? Treasure Storehouse is good enough. I can maybe get some atelier materials from this, so this works as well. Luckily for this treasure storehouse stage, luckily this was not an ally rescue stage, because those are definitely the most annoying when it comes to going out of your way to fight, to capture more bases than are required, since you have to play significantly faster in those. Luckily this one is a pretty the swiftly capture the enemy main camp, since the timer is basically not even real, since there are no real consequences for missing it. This is still a pretty good stage type to grind for extra bases on, to get those hero skill reset orbs. Do not want to fight that golden captain, but they are in my way. Getting some pretty good Honoka resets this time. I love the passive side missions during stages, because a lot of the time they'll finish on their own with you even having to do anything, and it will just randomly increase your bravery mid-stage. It is genuinely kind of helpful, but it is always, it is always weird, because I'm pretty sure that they want you to actively escort those transport units, but most of the time they're not going to die. So it's not really necessary to actually go out of your way to escort them. You can kind of just let them do their own thing most of the time. Just nearly messed up the scissors rotation, but luckily after you, even if you do get ultimate scissors with Honoka for the reset, there's like a 1 second delay at the end of it before it actually activates, to where you can still use another character hero skill if you haven't yet. It's not good to do that because the timing is kind of strict. You definitely can't fit in 2 hero skills, so you do still generally want to use it last in your rotation, but on the occasional cases where you accidentally use it before another hero skill, you do still get a couple of seconds a couple of frames, not even really full seconds, to use the other ones before the hero skill actually fully goes through its full activation. It does have a bit of leeway, even if not a ton. Now let's see how close everyone is. And we got it. I'm glad to say that this has been successful. We were successful and we got everyone with Kasumi to max, everyone that's actually necessary to max before the 4-hour mark. So very successful, yippee. However, you know, I was thinking, well, I was expecting to go to pretty close to the 4-hour mark, and we are. It is 3.5 hours, but that does leave us just enough time to try out another character a bit. Since might as well, since we got through with this character so much faster than expected. Have everyone except the 4 that don't matter and aren't real. Let's see. And the next is Ogrena in the list. However, despite her being the next in the normal list, I'll save her for next stream. For this stream, I will choose someone else. Let's see. Close my eyes and press a bunch of buttons. Whoever it lands on, I will go with, as long as it's not one of the 4 fake characters. Okay, it's her. Here we go. And I already maxed you out. I'm getting really bad luck with this. Okay, Ryu Hayabusa. I'll go with you for a bit. He is one of my favorite characters, so that works out perfectly. Now let's see, did we make any progress toward this? A tiny bit. We have 23 instead of 25 now, that's something. And more of these have spawned, that's also very nice. Couple of treasure storehouses. But yeah, we did reach max out on Kasumi, which means we never have to play her again. I'm very happy for that. Very glad to not have to play her anymore. But now we have... Our next main character to do will be Ogrena, but that will be next stream. So for now, just playing a bit of Ryu Hayabusa. He is a very fun character. He is one of my favorites, a very fast character who also has pretty high AoE potential, and is also good for single targets. He's kind of just all around fantastic. I would call him a jack of all trades, but he's really not a jack of all trades, more of a king of all trades. He is very good at pretty much everything he does. He's incredibly fast, has some decent single target attacks, and because of his Izuna drop, he also has very good potential for AoE damage. Nice tries. Do I have his... Okay, yeah. I do have his optimal card effects equipped. That is nice. Not gonna go for too much longer, by the way. I don't know if I will keep going until exactly the 4-hour mark. I just do want to play at least a tiny bit of a character who isn't Kasumi since the last few streams. Basically the last week of Warriors All-Stars, even though that's only been like 2 streams. Has just been Kasumi. And we have spent quite a while on her. It is very nice to at least play a tiny bit of someone who isn't her. As you can see, Ryu Hayabusa is a very good character for juggling opponents. His attacks are fast enough and launch just at the perfect height, where he doesn't launch them up too high, but also not too low. So he's very good for juggling opponents. And even when they do fall out of his juggle, because of this attack right here, his aerial light attack is a downward sweeping motion. Even when they do fall out of a juggle, it's very easy to immediately bring them back into a juggle. So he not only is great for maintaining juggles, he's very good for creating openings within enemy opponents to start juggles or restart them if you have immediately, very quickly failed it. And and immediately get back into one. He is really just one of the best characters. I think I would probably consider him either the most efficient or at least top 2 most efficient characters. I'd say Wang Yuanji is probably, by the way, I have no clue if I'm pronouncing that correctly, probably not, but I'd say Wang Yuanji is about tied with Ryu Hayabusa in terms of pure efficiency. However, in her case, it's because her light attacks exclusively are just so good. With Ryu Hayabusa, it's kind of his entire kit. Her light attacks are good enough to carry her on their own and make her overall about as efficient as Ryu. But Ryu kinda has more of an all-around fantastic kit. Also, I just realized I have 2 cards with him that both have the perfect skill set. I don't know if I manually set that or what. If I accidentally manually set 2 cards for him. It would be very funny if just by complete accident, coincidentally, another card ended up spawning with those exact effects. Probably not. I probably did just accidentally set them myself twice, but it is a very funny idea to think about. Spilled a tiny bit of my water while I was hydrating. Not much, nothing too bad. Tiny bit. Had to quickly clear that up. We're at 22. 22 left for the quest. And I think I will likely make this the last battle before ending stream. It's been a very fun stream. Again, you know, still have a few more minutes until I end it, but maxing out Kasumi was very satisfying to do. I'm very glad to be done with her. While maybe not my #1 least favorite character in the roster, she is definitely close enough to the bottom that I would not consider her a character that I enjoy playing for long periods of time. So I'm very glad to be done with her. Two down, 1 to go. Not ideal, I accidentally grabbed the orb at the exact same moment I got an ultimate scissors from Honoka. Basically a waste, but not too terrible. I'm focused more on just getting materials for this stage more than the typical regard grind. I accidentally dove right into the rockets of Sophie's attack. Went out of my way to go behind her to avoid it, and then I just accidentally used Ryu's aerial light attack to just dive directly into it. Should probably run directly to the last character because they are probably about to die, but because I did just see the in trouble message for them just a minute ago. I may not make it in time, but if I don't, not a huge deal. Still not ideal, but not the end of the world. Hopefully I do though. Okay, Obuna still has a decent amount of health. It should be fine. Oh, hello. Hello, Claudette. How are you? Nice to meet you. We are just doing a bit of regard grinding in Warriors All-Stars, going for full 100% completion. What I normally do, I 100% every musou. And this is the current one we're on. We're not too close to being done with it, but we are making steady progress. I think this is the first time we have had to fight Naotara or Oka as the main enemy commander this entire stream, which is kind of crazy. They're usually very common, but surprisingly have not been this stream, which is nice because they are terrible to fight, but we are fighting them now, unfortunately, but, you know, again, not too bad. While annoying to take out, they're definitely not necessarily difficult, just a little bit time consuming. And that put Honoka at max, not Christophorus though. She is unfortunately just that tiny dot away. a part of me almost wants to do one more stage just to max her out, but I think I'll save it. I'm not doing. I'll be doing Ryu's grinding later, anyways. In fact, I don't even think it's. Yeah, it's not even that far away. I think if I remember correctly, in terms of like the intended setup, the lineup I have planned, Grin is the next one. That'll be next stream. But after her, I believe is Ryu Hayabusa, because he's the next one on the starting character select menu. And then after that will be William, and Sophie, Arnes, Rio, and then we will start with the side characters, starting with Lubu. Yeah. Yeah, our actual main grinding time for Ryu is not that far away. So I don't wanna do too much of his grinding right now, quite yet. I'd rather wait a little bit for that. But I will visit the hot spring really quickly, one last time. I will be ending the stream here though. It was a very fun stream. As much as this game has kind of become a little bit exhausting to play after hours upon hours of non-stop playing, it is always satisfying to make significant progress, and we have made quite a lot of progress this stream. We are at 181 out of 200 on this quest, so we made about 20-25 atelier materials this stream. Hopefully next stream we may be able to finish this quest. But we also maxed out all of Kasumi, and did a little bit for Ryu. I would say this was a very, very successful stream. Tragic, I just returned off. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you for the stream. Thank you very much, Ellie. I'm sorry, it's not the best timing. I don't like going too far beyond the 4-hour mark. It was very nice having you here though. Thank you very much for showing up. We did finish, I don't know if you were here once we did it though, but we did successfully max out Kasumi's regard with every other character. Aside from the 4 that don't matter, but for most of them, we maxed them out with Kasumi. So it was, our stream goal was met. And next time we will be starting with Lagrena, who I have a decent amount already maxed out. Hers actually, it's very possible I may actually finish hers in one stream as well. Not super likely, but I don't think it will take more than 2 streams, because she already has quite a few at Confidant rank already. So yeah, next time will be Lagrena, and yeah. That will most likely be tomorrow, but if not, then sometime later this week. Something I'm also considering doing is, at some point this week or maybe next week, I would have to look for a bunch of demos before actually doing this stream. But I kind of want to, I know there's like a Steam Next Fest demo, and some demos of games from people that I know are actually in that fest. So I am considering within the next few days, either next stream or sometime later this week, doing a stream where we just check out a bunch of demos. Don't know if that'll be next stream. If it is, cool. If not, then it will be Warriors All-Stars yet again. A bit of Lagrena grinding. But, yeah, as for this stream, it has been a very, very fun stream. A very mediocre game, but quite a lot of progress in such a game. Thank you everyone for showing up. I hope you all have a very nice day. Bye bye, see you next time.